Hi, everyone. Welcome to the C60 Show, where we show you how to optimize your health with Carbon 60.
Hi, I'm Ken, a research scientist and founder of C60 Purple Power. I'm here to explain the science of C60 and show you how it works at the cellular level to give you back control over your own health.
And I'm Sierra. I'm a health and wellness advocate and a mom. And today we are going to talk about the adrenal glands. They produce some hormones that are absolutely vital for our ability to thrive and survive. But sometimes these little glands can get pooped out. And so we end up with what's called adrenal fatigue.
Yes, they certainly can get exhausted and lead to the point of total burnout. And oxidative stress is a big part of that.
If you think you're suffering from adrenal fatigue or burnout, definitely stick around, because today we're going to show you what symptoms to look for and how to get back on track with healthy adrenal function.
Yep, we're live today and ready to take your questions. So please put them in the comments or elsewhere so we can discuss them at the end of the show.
Yes, and if you had adrenal issues or hormone imbalances and you found that C60 helps you, please let us know in the comments. We would love to hear your story.
Okay, let's get started, shall we?
Absolutely, but first,
oh yes,
let's start with our disclaimer, shall we?
Yes, all opinions expressed on this show today are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek advice from your doctor or other qualified healthcare practitioner. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Individual results may vary.
First, let's talk about what are the adrenal glands and where's our presentation? It disappeared.
Oh, well, here it is.
That's all right, we don't need it actually. I did want to show you a picture of this. Let me just see if I can pull it up. We might be having some internet connection issues. But basically they're these bean-like shaped caps on the top of your adrenal glands. On the top of your kidneys, right? So your kidneys are organs, obviously.
Right, yeah, right back there.
Right back there. And the adrenals are actually glands. They're an endocrine gland, so different than an organ. Wow, I have completely lost my internet connection.
Are we still broadcast?
Are we still live?
Let us know.
It says we're live.
We're live, cool. Let us know in the comments. Do we got live comments running?
That's a good question. Let me just
We've had bumpy internet connectivities here.
Are we okay? Let us know, Chris. Are we okay? We'll keep going without our presentation if we have to. So we're going to paint the picture for you. You're going to have to use your imagination, folks, just a little bit. So let me make sure. But the good news is you'll see our beautiful faces the whole time. And we won't be hidden by slides. But we do have a lot to cover today. So use your thinking caps, use your imaginations, and people in podcast land, you're already doing this anyway, so you're all good to go. We want to start with basically about the adrenal glands. Okay, so there's a few things you want to know about these little guys. Well, what do they do? Obviously is an important point. They're primarily responsible for your base energy. They help you feel good with a good amount of vigor and less for life. These glands work diligently to deal with all the stress that we put on them from, our diet, from emotional stress, from toxins, both internal and external. So they deal with a lot, and basically they're responsible for our stress response. So if we're stressed out, then they're going to start kicking out cortisol, right? And we're going to talk about cortisol today. Cortisol gets a bad rap, but honestly, you need it to live. And I'm a perfect testament to that because I actually have Addison's disease. And we're going to talk about some of the problems that can occur with adrenal dysfunction. Addison's disease is an extreme example, and it's where the adrenal cortex becomes atrophied. And sometimes this is due to an autoimmune condition. So if you're really, really stressed out, your adrenals will start to get inflamed and they'll start to harden, and your body can actually attack those, the cortex of the adrenal gland when it's inflamed, right? But when you're cranking out stress hormone all the time, well, guess what? The whole process of steroidogenesis, the cells inside the adrenal glands that produce those hormones, they are producing a ton of oxidative stress and free radicals, right?
Yes, indeed. And that's And they're so important. You got the glucocorticoids, which they balance your blood sugar levels and all the other things. And also you got mineral corticoids. They do kind of the same thing, the salt balance in your blood. And then you have the androgens that make eventually are
Sex
produced,
hormones,
yes,
right?
produced estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. And then there's several other different ones.
Right. And actually, when there are any hormone imbalances, the place you want to look at is with the adrenals first, because basically the adrenal function can affect your thyroid function. And if you're producing a ton of cortisol, you can be actually resistant, like insulin resistance. Not only can you be resistant to insulin, which is a hormone, but other hormones as well. So you might be producing plenty of the hormone, but your cells are not able to receive it. So there's all kinds of ways things can go wrong when it comes to hormone imbalances, because there's different systems, right? There's the production of the hormone itself. There's the transport of the hormone. There's the reception of the hormone. There's all these different stages. And any one of these stages, there can be something that goes wrong that can lead to a problem. So you want to look at the upstream source of the problem, basically. But if you have any hormonal imbalance, start by looking at your cortisol levels. And there's ways to test that Western medicine will traditionally use that are not quite as effective as maybe some of the functional medicine doctors, what they're using. They're using saliva tests, because you're just testing, the blood or the urine doesn't always give you a clear picture of how much cortisol you're actually producing and using.
And it varies, and it also varies during the different times of the day.
Yes.
Generally, it's supposed to start going up toward midnight and work its way up, and it's highest in the morning. And then as you get up and do stuff, it slowly goes down until it goes to the bottom. And that's ideal. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the ideal, that whole ideal nice slope, and it gets a little bit choppy. And that's where you can, that's where a lot of the testing can do, especially the saliva testing, because you can test it during the day and then take little graphs, and then you can actually see what's going on with your cortisol levels. And cortisol is just an underlying level that is easy to reach to. The other tests are like blood tests, and that's a lot harder.
Yeah, and there's some negative effects that are associated with high levels of cortisol. Now there's, let's talk about some of those negative effects, because we all know about cortisol. This is the stress hormone, right? And so here's some things that cortisol does. Cortisol stimulates body cells to increase their energy production, which is a good thing, right?
Yes.
So when you have a stress response, then the body is going to kick in and dump a bunch of sugar into the bloodstream so that you have energy to, fight or flight, right? It's going to make the heart race and start pumping faster. It's going to raise your blood pressure, and it's going to tell the liver to produce, to make the sugar go into the blood system, right? Yeah. And then what else is it going to do?
Well, another thing that if you have too high a cortisol will actually convert proteins into sugars for the cells to use as an energy source. And when that happens, of course, the proteins aren't available for your cells, so you actually lose muscle mass. So people lose muscle mass under a lot of that, under that stress, and that's a real problem. And that's actually how predatory animals actually make, how do they get their carbs? Well, they actually convert the proteins into sugars, which then their cells use in the mitochondria. So that there's a whole process there. Oh, we're back up.
We're
yes,
back.
Hooray.
We've got slides. So obviously the adrenal glands, do help with the stress response, but they do a lot of other things as well. Today we are going to focus on the stress response, because it's something you can look at and change your lifestyle habits, your dietary habits, and you can avoid things that raise your cortisol levels, and you can start giving your adrenals some love right away, because that's what you really want to do to address hormonal imbalances in general. Whatever hormone imbalance you may have, start with the adrenals. Back it up and go to the source, because the adrenals are like the first domino in the whole charade of hormone imbalances, right? We talked about the cortex versus the adrenal medulla.
Yeah, the inside, for those listening on the podcast, the medulla is the inside, the adrenal cortex is kind of like the outside. They're about the size of a kidney bean sitting on top of your of your liver. I mean, your kidneys.
Kidneys.
And so, yeah, they have the outside and the inside, and each part of it makes distinct different hormones.
Yeah, the cortex makes the steroid hormones, and the medulla makes like the epinephrine and the adrenaline and all of that. All right, let's see.
Here we go. This is even a better one.
And there we go.
Yeah, so we got the mineral corticoids, which are, we'll just cortisone, and then we got glucocorticoids, that's cortisol and cortisone too. So they make
the mineral corticoids help with the salt and water
salt
levels.
And also calcium. They can also work with the calcium.
Potassium.
And we got the androgens, of course, that's estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. And then we have the
epinephrine.
Epinephrine and norepinephrine, and I should pronounce that name.
That's right. We can move
on.
We're focusing on the cortex today and the steroid hormones.
A few of those words a little difficult. I need to practice on.
So we talked about the most extreme cases of adrenal problems, which would be Addison's disease, and then Cushing's disease is the opposite. So rather than your body not producing enough cortisol, actually you're producing way too much. But those both can be autoimmune related. And sometimes Cushing syndrome will happen because the pituitary is pumping out a bunch of hormone that's telling your adrenals to produce more and more and more and more cortisol. So there's various causes for that one.
Yeah, and you need to keep all of your glands going, because you have the pineal gland, of course, that's doing with sleep, but the pituitary hypothalamus complex, they're like the master one. So if you have a problem up there, it can just go downhill everywhere. And so you need to, and it's also good to have a functional medical doctor to kind of do the blood tests on you so they can determine what's actually going on.
Well, they'll still have you also consult with an endocrinologist specifically. So you really want to have multiple people on your team in this, especially with hormonal imbalances, because they're so complex. But because they're so complex, that's why I like to take a functional approach, because what we can do, what we know we can do is to help, lower the cortisol levels, lower our stress, and which leads to the problem of adrenal fatigue. So let's talk about that. So here are some of the factors. We discussed some of these already. We've got autoimmune, inflammation. Leaky gut is a big one. In fact, that's a well-known cause of autoimmune conditions in general. And then food allergies. So not only, just emotional stress, but your body gets stressed out when you're eating something that is causing an inflammatory response, and your immune system's having to kick in, and you've got this low-grade chronic inflammation, or you might have a low-grade chronic infection. Anything like that is going to stress you out physically. So think about stress in terms of mental stress, physical stress, and also, toxins and nutritional deficiencies. Your immune system takes a lot of nutrients to run correctly.
Yeah. And some of those, especially the mitochondria, you need manganese, and then selenium, especially
magnesium.
Magnesium, and also vitamin C, not just as an antioxidant, but it's actually vitamin C is a building block in a lot of the processes in your body, especially the Krebs cycle. So you need all of these parts to make it work.
And the B vitamins, if you have adrenal problems, you definitely want to take a B complex of some sort, but also antioxidants. Now, the process of creating steroid hormone in the cells creates a ton of free radicals and reactive, what do you call those? ROS?
Reactive oxidative species.
And so the adrenals actually have to have enzymes and antioxidants to fight those things. And so as we age, our antioxidant production declines. So we really need to look for sources from our food. And then also there's some antioxidants you can't get from your food that your body produces that we also want to replace. Now, C60 is something that can do that can fill the gap when it comes to the antioxidant functions. A lot of these functions that glutathione and CoQ10 and catalase do, C60 can actually perform some of those functions. And that's why it's so effective at neutralizing free radicals. So it can really support the adrenals in that way. Also chronic stress, of course, because you're having to produce more of that stress hormone, oxidative stress, blood sugar problems. We'll get deeper into that, but this is actually the finger that flicks the domino, okay? So if you're eating a lot of sugar, your cortisol is going to be pumping out like crazy. But if you don't have enough sugar, your cortisol will be pumping out too, trying to balance your sugar. So it's one of those things. You just want to stay away from refined sugar and eat fruit, things like that. Watch out for those low carb diets too, right? And then another one is steroid drug therapies. So if you've been taking prednisone, hydrocortisone, those things can slow down the production of the adrenal glands and even bring them to a halt.
Yes, because it just jams up. Because that's one of the problems with replacement therapies like that, hormone replacement therapies, is you're only getting one hormone, and yet all the hormones work together, and so you can just unbalance things pretty badly. So it's best to fix the problem before it happens, or find another approach that is a little bit more balanced.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we talked about the stress response system a little bit already, but you see that basically the brain, the nervous system, okay, you're telling your adrenals, hey, make cortisol, make adrenaline, and then adrenal glands are telling the liver to produce more glycogen, and the basically halts the digestive system, by the way, guys. So if you're having digestion problems, always start with digestion problems with any condition, really. It all starts in the gut, right? For so many things. So it's the same with hormone imbalances, and it can cause high blood pressure as well.
Yeah, and it's those mental things, if you're worrying all the time or have those, that mental stress, that even though you're not under physical stress, that can really cause, a whole disruption.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and we're going to give you a nice little trick about stress management in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's talk real quick about high cortisol levels, because we've heard this is the bad boy of hormones. But obviously we need it to live. You absolutely have to have it to be able to metabolize your food, your water, the salts, everything. You need it. In fact, if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to absorb any nutrients or any food or anything. And you're just going to dehydrate and you're going to waste away. And yeah, it's scary. So but let's talk about high cortisol levels, because this is the problem that most people are experiencing today with the high levels of stress that just come with modern society, and the high levels of toxins and everything else that we have to deal with nowadays. So here's the problem. High cortisol levels can turn on disease-causing genes. And it can be, the reason why a lot of health conditions today, it can actually lead to numerous health conditions. Because if you don't, there's lots of reasons why. But weight gain, have you heard of stress belly?
Yes.
Yeah. So not only is it weight gain, but it's abdominal visceral weight gain, which is the bad kind of weight. That's the bad kind of fat you do not want, because that fat produces more hormones and causes all kinds of problems. Insulin resistance, impaired cognitive function. So basically high cortisol levels, it might get you going and feel like you have a lot of energy, but it actually turns off the frontal cortex, like the decision-making part of the brain. And so making, wise decisions is not easy when you have high levels of cortisol. Something to think about. Of course, suppressed thyroid function, lowered immunity. You might be more susceptible to infections. You might have slow wound healing, things like that. Blood sugar imbalances, decreased bone density. So people that take steroids and hydrocortisol, that's one of the symptoms, is they can get osteoporosis and be at high risk for bone problems. Decrease in muscle tissue, higher blood pressure, hormone imbalances, and oxidative stress.
All of these things feed back to each other.
So let's talk about high cortisol levels. We did a little research on, how oxidative stress affects adrenal function. And what we found was that, yes, it absolutely does. So what happens, and the whole reason why the adrenals get pooped out, is because they're having to produce more and more and more cortisol when you're stressed. And so the oxidative stress becomes overwhelming and they literally shut down.
Yeah, and this is one of the things they show, and for those not watching it, they're showing a little action, chemical action going on in the mitochondria. And basically mitochondria takes the LDL cholesterol and converts it into pregnenolone. And then it goes into deoxycortisol, which is on the way to making cortisol. And they have the thing called electron leakage. These electrons leak out, and then they'll attach themselves to an oxygen, and that'll make superoxide, or what people sometimes call superoxygen. And that is a really super bad oxidative radical. And then usually SOD, manganese SOD, there's a manganese attached to that SOD. So that's why you need to get your manganese in multi-supplement, hopefully. And that neutralizes it to hydrogen peroxide, and then catalase turns the hydrogen peroxide back into water and oxygen. So you have this whole process there. And if you don't have enough SOD or catalase, then you have oxidative damage.
And SOD and catalase, just to clarify, are both antioxidants that your body produces.
Yes,
right?
and you're only
declines as you age.
Exactly, and it's only produced in the cells. You cannot supplement for these. You can't really even you can take some of the precursors, but this is just something that happens. And so there are things like C60, which is an SOD mimic that can take the place of missing SOD. But this is just the basic process by which your mitochondria work.
And so the mitochondria are responsible. They're the mitochondria in the cells. That's what produces the hormone, right?
Yes, it produces produces the hormones. And it's specific to whatever cells, because there's different glands that produce different hormones, and they always take LDL cholesterol, turn it into. That's why people get buildup of LDL cholesterol, because it's not being turned into pregnenolone in the mitochondria and then into the various possible hormones that could become, and so it builds up in your blood supply, and then LDL cholesterol gets oxidized, sticks to your arteries and veins, and then you have plaque buildup. So making sure that that process doesn't slow down is really important in so many ways.
You can also have too little cholesterol. People on these low-fat diets, it can be very, very detrimental to adrenal function, because you need cholesterol, some level of cholesterol, in order to convert into pregnenolone. Well, we've talked before about how C60 can help increase the production of pregnenolone just by improving the efficiency of the mitochondria, right? But then there's this thing called the pregnenolone steal, which is specifically related to stress. When you have high stress, what the body does is it takes all that pregnenolone and it converts it to stress hormones. And guess what? There's not enough left to produce the thyroid hormones and to produce the sex hormones. And then you have a cascade of hormone imbalance. And this is kind of like chemically what is happening to produce that.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. It's just a balance between the two. You need both HDL and LDL for a healthy. I mean, they're used by the body for healthy things. That's not like one's good or bad. It's just the balance in the levels. Mm-hmm. And usually the LDL cholesterol levels can be a lot higher in older people than what is commonly talked about. And people say, oh, it's bad. No, it's not bad. You need that because your hormonal function process is a little bit slowed down, and that's the result.
All right, let's talk about adrenal burnout, because this is what happens, folks, when we have levels of cortisol that are just out of control. At first, we're going to feel amazing, right? Feel like we're Superwoman or Superman, and we can just do a million things at once, and we can do everything. And then we're going to feel tired, but still wired, right? Not going to be able to sleep because our brain is still going, and our bodies are having a hard time at this point to actually shut down the cortisol production. And when we don't sleep, well, what happens? We can't detox these hormones out of our body. We can't do the opposite of stress response, which is basically slowing down and rebuilding. We can't do that. So we are going to burn out. And next phase is, you've got some inflammation and pain that starts occurring in some of these low cortisol symptoms, and we'll get more into that. And then you're just plain tired because, again, cortisol is the thing that basically has the cells produce energy. Yeah, so it really is.
Yeah, it's like when you can't get up in the morning. You wake up in the morning and just can't seem to get out of bed. That's a sign of adrenal burnout, because by then you should have like a good level of cortisol that started building and you're ready to go in the morning. When if you're not, That's a real sign of cortisol, of you have a adrenal problem, and it's usually associated with cortisol.
And here's the key is that no matter how much you sleep, it doesn't seem to go away.
Yes.
And when you get to this fourth phase, you're in trouble because it can take a while to recover from this. So if you think you're in the first or second phase, now's your chance, folks.
Yes, and the other thing is coffee won't fix the problem. Coffee actually makes it worse.
Yeah,
Coffee burns up your cortisol.
Yes.
So you're actually in a worse state after you're done drinking that coffee than you were before.
And that's another sign, folks. If you're drinking coffee and it makes you tired, you know you're in trouble. So let's talk about adrenal fatigue, some of the symptoms. If you start craving salt, well, that's a sure tell sign you're not getting enough aldosterone, right? The hormone that governs that salt balance level. Maybe you're having digestive problems. Well, we know that the stress response turns off the digestion, right? Suppressed immune system. So if you're getting the flu, if you're getting sick, if you're getting chronic infections, well, obviously your immune system is not functioning properly and it needs the cortisol. So less accurate memory. Again, cortisol, one of the things is the brain function is directly related to, cortisol will affect that. Depression, irritability, and then low libido, low sex drive, then your tendency to gain weight. Now, I would say that for high cortisol, yes, it would help, it would make you gain weight. But if you're in stage 4 and you have extremely low cortisol, you're actually going to lose weight. In fact, you're going to start losing a lot of weight because you're not going to be able to metabolize anything. Tiredness, ongoing fatigue, of course, pain in the neck or the back. If you're going to start feeling pain in your body, you might feel, your joints start to hurt or your muscles just start to ache. You just don't feel good. Your whole body doesn't feel good. Dizziness or weakness. This is a huge one because we know that cortisol helps regulate the blood pressure. So if you have low cortisol, that is going to result in low blood pressure. In fact, people with Addison's, like myself, have to have a blood pressure monitor. And that's how we know when we need more cortisol. So if I'm standing up and I'm dizzy, I know, check your blood pressure or your electrolyte balance too, right?
Yeah,
you might need more salt.
And that's where treatments come in. And that's like, what can you do to help you? Obviously, things is you need good supplementation, because if you've got a lousy diet, and a lot of times the food in the United States isn't that good anymore because our soils have been mined out. So a lot of those key nutrients like selenium, manganese, and are not available, and you don't have enough. So that's why good multivitamin, multimineral. But you need things like vitamin C, vitamin D, and also the B vitamins are super critical. So you supplement those. You may need over supplementation, like a B multi-complex, and then on top of that, like an extra B12. And then at nighttime, you use a B6. You don't want to use the other B vitamins at nighttime; they'll keep you up. But a B6 at nighttime with magnesium is really good at kind of giving the right to things. And of course, let's also get the omega fatty acids.
Yes.
You've got to get the right 3 to 6. And we've babbled on before many times about how like people have way too many seed oils that are omega-6 rich that cause inflammation, but they also kind of knock that balance out. So even if you're taking the omega-3s, they're kind of being damaged by the excess omega-6s. So yeah, you need to, so that's like fish oils and hemp, or flax and hemp oils and stuff are really high in it, but make sure you get them from the refrigerated section of your health food store, because if you buy that stuff off the shelf, like fish oils or krill oils off the shelf or flax oils, they're almost certainly rancid, and that's another really bad thing.
Although there is a method where they can do it without oxygen or something like that. Yeah,
that's what they say, but it's still, and then of course the other thing is sleep.
Yes.
That's the number one.
Huge.
And people you need to stop the late night staying up. You need to set like a bedtime, like the kids, right? You go to bed, let's say at 9 or at 10, and that's before, the cortisol levels should hit the bottom. And then, and then do that every night. Just get a solid sleep pattern and just do it every night. And you don't get to stay up and watch the late show, but you wake up in the morning feeling a lot better.
Now let's talk about stress management really quickly. We know that, yoga is not for everybody. Meditation is a little woo-woo for some people, although I love doing those things and find they really, really, really help. But here's something you can do that's not woo-woo, but you can do this. And actually watch the show with Dr. Kirk Parsley that we released last week on the Health Connection show. Watch that show because he talks about this. But basically, you can, if you're thinking about the future, or you're worried about the future, or you're regretting or thinking about the past, that causes stress. If you're in the moment, it doesn't. So a lot of times just doing a hobby like knitting, crocheting, or fishing or something. Why do people love fishing so much? Like I love fishing so much. It's relaxing and I'm in the moment because I'm just thinking about the fish. Where's the fish? Oh, I got to try this lure. Like I'm not even thinking about the future or the past or anything. I think that's where the phrase comes from. I'd rather be fishing. Yes. So let's just reevaluate your whole life. Like before you take on too much, before you like commit to things that you don't want to do, ask yourself, what would you rather be doing? Would you rather be fishing or doing something you love? So think about that, because part of stress management is time management, managing your energy and managing your time. Think about the things you don't want to waste your energy on, okay? Because I'll tell you what, when your cortisol level is low, that's when you really discover where you don't have energy to do things. And whether it's to put on a happy face when you're not feeling happy, or or to say things that maybe you don't feel like are really your truth and that you have to like explain later or whatever. Like there's so many ways that we kind of waste our energy on things. And so think about how you can start to conserve your energy. But really that's all I have to say about managing stress. But do what you love to do. Make time for yourself. It's important.
Well, we have the things we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Sugar, especially those high levels of sugar, caffeine, the junk food, that's usually the fatty, the omega-6 rich acids, fat.
Yes.
And usually it's rancid too if it came out of the French fries out of, the fast food restaurant. And also alcohol. All of those things kind of like disrupt things.
And all these things cause inflammation. So
yeah, so it's the same thing. And
I got to mention one other thing. Well, drugs. Okay, marijuana we'll say is a medicine. Maybe it's not a drug, but it has been shown to increase cortisol levels. There is a research study about that. You can just do a search on Google. Does marijuana increase cortisol levels? Yes, it does. We did a show recently on CBD. That's not something that we mentioned then, but I wish we would have, because it's really something to look at, because that can also be a factor in adrenal burnout if you're doing something like that frequently. Let's talk about food.
Oh, yes. Well, it's like eating organic. But like,
anti-inflammatory.
Anti-inflammatory.
Definitely.
So the green leafy vegetables, colorful fruits, stay away from the grains, healthy proteins.
I don't want to say stay away from the grains. Okay. I do want to say stay away from the glutinous grains.
Yeah, stay away from the glutinous grains.
The
that's
whole
correct.
grains actually are a great source of B vitamins. And I want to say something really quick. These diet protocols that are supposed to help you heal, people go on them and they go on for too long. And what happens is they're not getting a variety of nutrients. They're missing out on those B vitamins. They're missing out on all those beautiful minerals that are in like the nuts and the seeds. Oh, yes. And what happens, they're also not getting enough carbs. These low carb diets, they are not healthy for your adrenals, because as you're low on sugar, your body is going to start kicking in more cortisol to balance out your sugar. So think about that. You want to have fruit once in a while, okay, people? Yes. Maybe some sweet potatoes. And yes, some brown rice would do you good. Some quinoa would do you good. So think about that.
Yes, and like things like pumpkin seeds. Mm-hmm. Pumpkin seeds are an incredible food because they provide all kinds of
zinc.
Yes, zinc and selenium and certain sort of fatty acids that are really good. So those are nice, yes.
Now, so if you're going to do a protocol, just know that it's got to be temporary. So 2 or 3 months max. I mean, I see people doing like the AIP diet where you basically cut out everything. The only thing you can eat is vegetables and fruit and meat. That's pretty much it. And you can't have seed oils. You can't have seeds or nuts. You can't have grains. You can't have a lot of different vegetables, nightshades. I mean, it's crazy how restrictive it is. So be careful. Know that you can do an elimination diet. You can find out what your food sensitivities are. but then you can start to heal your body so that you can get over some of these things. Some people are very sensitive to all kinds of foods and they can hardly eat anything, but there's ways to heal that.
Yeah, another thing like quinoa, that South American grain, if you have a glucose processing problem, quinoa can often exacerbate that. So be careful with quinoa if you've got gluten problems.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of those things everybody thinks, oh, it's so healthy for you, but it has problems. And I noticed when I fed quinoa to my birds outside, they wouldn't eat it. So they said, no, that's nothing we want to eat. So I would stay away from the quinoa.
Okay.
It's just as a rule. I think in the future studies will show that's a problem, but better to know it now than wait till later till somebody tells you afterwards.
Now, while I, don't love these protocol diets for long-term and elimination diets for long-term, there are a couple things that you should stay away from if you have hormone imbalances. One is gluten, because look, gluten is not the way it used to be. Gluten today is highly processed. It's sprayed with chemicals, and our bodies become allergic to it on many levels, just because, and also the gluten itself has a lot higher gluten content, like the wheat has a higher gluten content because it keeps for longer, it has a longer shelf life. But anyway, gluten and then also dairy can be a factor in hormone imbalances and autoimmune conditions. So if you're going to eliminate something, those two would be good to eliminate. Let's talk about symptoms of adrenal fatigue. Well, these are obvious. We just talked about some of these: fatigue, trouble waking up in the morning. I think we covered all of this.
Feeling run down and overwhelmed all the time, difficult bouncing back from stress or illness. Of course, the craving salty and sweet foods, and feeling more awake and energetic after 6 p.m. That just means your cycle is offset, and part of the whole process is resetting the cortisol cycle.
Triggers intense or prolonged stress, lack of sleep, consuming too much coffee or caffeine, type A personality.
Yep, that can be a problem.
Gotta go.
Yeah.
Autoimmune conditions, low-fat dieting, over-exercising, food allergies and sensitivities.
I think, yes, we've mentioned those.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? Yep. Avoid things that elevate cortisol levels. Okay, we talked about all these. We're just being so thorough today. We're repeating ourselves a little bit, but that's okay.
Here's the things that you can do. Okay, get at least 8 hours of sleep
for lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes, and then moderate exercise, not too much, and maybe in the afternoon. Because if you don't get some of it, you have to burn that stuff up. And exercise is part of our lifestyle, right? For our history, evolutionary history. So we need to get a certain amount of exercise every day. And we're not talking if you overstress it, do your multi-training, that could be a problem, but everybody should get some exercise every day.
Just walking 30 minutes a day would be really, really good.
And then
it can help with stress as well.
And then of course, you've talked about meditation, yoga, breathe work, leave of absence from school or work. Sometimes you just have to. That's if you're in stage 4.
Yeah, if you're stage 4. You can't do anything at that point.
Yeah, you got to, and then commit to doing less, not like fill your schedule so far up. You just are totally tired at the end of the day.
Did anyone else have that problem post-pandemic, which I guess that's not really a thing, which we're discovering, but, all of a sudden social activities, filling the calendar with all kinds of commitments. And I love friends, I love people, but man, it can be draining doing too many things. So be careful there. Food for healing adrenal fatigue. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. Of course, this is all in anti-inflammatory foods. Keeping the blood sugar stable. So if you are in stage 4, stage 3 adrenal burnout, you should be eating every 2 hours to really nourish the adrenals and you want to make it as easy as possible. Give your adrenals a rest, keep your blood sugar level as much as you can, and eating more frequent meals will really help with that. Including eat breakfast within 1 hour of waking before 10 a.m., which makes sense. You don't want those blood sugar levels to drop. Have small, I think we just said all that.
Yeah, pretty much we've done this. We've just talked this before. But
I think we forgot about the slides. We didn't need these slides, guys. That's why they went away.
Yes, and one of the things is, it's different when you're, if you're just in like stage 1 or stage 2, that's one thing. But when you hit the wall, you've got to step up and do a whole lot of different things and just focus on healing yourself.
A lot of people are in stage 1 and stage 2. And simple things like just eliminating caffeine. I want to clarify about caffeine though, because coffee has been found to elevate cortisol levels. However, do you know that green tea actually lowers cortisol levels? So if you want to switch to green tea and still get a bit of caffeine, I mean, obviously you don't want to overdo it, 8 ounces to 12 ounces max. That will actually help reduce the stress level. And I have actually found this because I found, one of my stress points is this show. I don't sleep as well the night before for some reason, but also I noticed that if I had coffee before the show, I was more stressed out. If I had green tea before the show, I was calmer. My mind was more focused because, you don't get that turning off of the cerebral, the frontal cortex.
Yeah.
And I was just able to have more fun during the show. So I've stopped drinking coffee and switched to green tea. I will share my recipe with you guys for delicious jasmine green tea, iced tea with lime juice. There it is. That's the recipe. It's jasmine green tea with lime juice over ice. It's amazing. But don't steep it for too long. 5 minutes max for a big half-gallon jar. I make that once a week, and I drink that in the morning after eating. So otherwise, if you drink it on an empty stomach, you might get nauseous, just something like that.
So let's talk about C60. Well, obviously C60, oh yes, the C60 is of course an antioxidant, a superior antioxidant, and it's gonna get rid of those oxidative radicals. As we mentioned before, it's an SOD mimic. So it's selective, so it's going to get rid of it could get rid of those superoxide, and also it's unique. It does it instead of taking superoxide, which is an oxygen with an extra electron. It'll grab the electron, give it to one of the hydrogen ions it likes to store inside, and reset itself, and it goes back to oxygen. That means it doesn't produce catalase like with regular SOD, and your catalase levels actually rise. And then that catalase can be used in other reactions to get rid of hydrogen peroxide. That's why if you take C60, a lot of times people have white hair, it comes back salt and pepper, because the catalase levels rise, they get rid of more of hydrogen peroxide, and the hydrogen peroxide is what gets rid of the color in your hair. So that's a benefit there, and also gets rid of hydroxyl radical, just reduces the overall burden on your cells. But the great thing about C60, it doesn't interfere with signaling molecules. Won't mess with the nitrogen oxide or those various other ROS signaling molecules that are based on iron, sulfur, zinc, which are, you got to have a balance between oxidative radicals and reduction. And C60 doesn't interfere with that, which is really important. And of course, the other key thing we talked about, it makes pregnenolone, and that's the precursor molecule for all the hormones. And then the cells determine whatever the cell is. Like if that you're taking that LDL cholesterol, so it's not building up in your blood, it's being turned into pregnenolone. And then it's going to take your pineal gland, it'll turn it into melatonin. That's why people take C60. Well, my sleep's improved. Well, that's kind of what it is. Your pituitary hypothalamus complex, you got the human growth hormone, you got FLSH, and all of these things that regulate the thyroid, the adrenals. They're just the pituitary hypothalamus complex, just like the master ones. It puts out so many different ones. That's more than I can remember. And then of course you got your adrenals that'll do that. But there's also things like your fat cells actually produce hormones.
Yes.
And your gut.
And tumors can produce hormones, including cortisol.
Yes. And then especially the small intestine will produces a large amount of hormones. And so you have all of these things. And if they can't get the pregnenolone, then they can't produce the hormones they need. And of course, we talked about pregnenolone steal, because if you don't have enough, if your SOD goes out, then your mitochondria turn down, and you got stress going on, and what little pregnenolone is left goes to cortisol. There's nothing left for all the other things, and then there's a cascade from there.
I just want to back it up really quick, because you said C60 produces pregnenolone. I wouldn't say it produces. It helps with the efficiency of the mitochondria, which produce.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because the mitochondria, as we get older, the SOD drops down. And so does a lot of things like glutathione and other things. It creates
free radicals
in
mitochondria.
Exactly. And what the mitochondria, they're little organelles, they have their own DNA, and if they don't have enough, they'll self-regulate. So if the mitochondria don't have enough SOD or whatever,
antioxidants,
they just turn themselves down and produce less of everything, less ATP, less pregnenolone, and then you don't have enough energy. But when mitochondria actively uptake C60, use it as an SOD mimic replacement, and then they can turn themselves back on. and then the whole downstream of pregnenolone, of ATP, and also a lot of the precursors for DNA and RNA synthesis, they're also produced in the mitochondria. In fact, the mitochondria make a whole wide variety of stuff. And if your mitochondria aren't healthy, your cells aren't healthy, and you aren't healthy.
And one last point about C60 is that it supports natural energy production and is a healthy alternative to caffeine. If you know what fake energy feels like, or, from a stimulant versus natural energy that comes from optimal health, there is a big difference. One is kind of dirty and you don't feel so good after a while. The other one is clean. You're able to focus. I mean, it's a much better source of energy. So basically, the C60 itself doesn't produce energy. Yeah. It just supports your body so that it can have leftover energy to do what it needs to heal itself or anything else. Now, when you first take C60, you might not notice that energy increase. What you might notice is that you're tired because your body's trying to heal itself, and it's still using every bit of energy to heal itself. And finally, it can have a moment to heal itself because the inflammation has gone down, and now it can start to heal itself. So if you're tired, just wait, because you're going to get to that level of health that is going to give you more energy. And always think about the source of the problem when it comes to any hormonal imbalance. You want to think about gut health. You want to think about, adrenal function, stress levels, all of those things, which we've said so many times. And we've talked about things to avoid so many times. Same things come up again and again: refined sugar, caffeine, alcohol, drugs, all of it. It's every problem you can think of. Inflammatory diet is a culprit. So think about that. But we're ready to take some questions, and it's a great time to put those in the chat if you haven't already. We have a ton of questions today, guys.
So let's get on it.
Our show that we did, top mistakes when taking C60. If you haven't seen that show yet, go check it out. But it was huge success. There were a lot of people seeing it. So from that show, I think we got a ton of questions, and we probably won't get to all of them today, but I did forward a few emails to Ken, so he'll get to you eventually. But let's get started. We've got some email questions, but let's start with a question from YouTube. And it is, my understanding is that C60 acts as a blood thinner. Is it possible that bruising can increase, especially if vitamin C is also ingested?
C60 doesn't act as a blood thinner. What happens is if you take C60, a lot of times your mineral corticoids, they regulate a lot of the thickness of the blood, the minerals in the blood, which regulate the thickness, is the underlying problem can go away. And so this is one of the counterindicates. So if you're taking like a blood thinner and you take C60, you need to do extra testing with your doctor, not because the C60 is making your blood thinner, it's that C60 is helping to fix the underlying problem, which made your blood thick in the first place. And so if you're taking a medicine, then you can have a problem downstream with that because your blood gets too thin because the underlying problem goes away. So that's how C60 is. It doesn't thin itself, blood in itself. It just fixes underlying problems.
All right. How can C60 help with high cholesterol?
Well, that's, well, first off,
does anyone know in the comments?
Yeah,
the high cholesterol. We said it earlier.
Yeah, high cholesterol it's not, cholesterol is good for you. Doesn't matter, LDL, HDL. The balance is what's important. Usually what happens is LDL cholesterol is used in the synthesis of pregnenolone and several other chemicals, and usually in the mitochondria. If your mitochondria aren't functioning efficiently, the LDL cholesterol level builds up in your blood, and if it gets oxidized, then it can stick to your arteries, and you get that arterial sclerosis. So once you get C60 in there, the mitochondria kick up function. They start pulling that LDL cholesterol out of the bloodstream and turning it into pregnenolone or other things. And then that problem can be greatly reduced. And so that's basically the cycle of go on. It's not good or bad. It's the levels, and it's all linked to the function of your mitochondria.
So basically, when you don't have enough pregnenolone, it can't use up the cholesterol, and then you get hormonal problems.
Yeah.
And decline.
It's all things. It builds up in your blood. You don't have the hormones downstream. You need to keep the mitochondria healthy and functioning.
Absolutely, it is the source of a lot of problems. And healing, if you pay attention. C60 is, okay, Molly says, C60 is a game changer. Love it. You can feel it. I've been using it for 6 months. It keeps getting better and better. Thanks for the info and the tremendous product. Been through all 4 stages of adrenal fatigue after being a super long distance athlete. C60 and fulvic minerals have been really helpful. Thank you, Molly.
Yes, good to hear it. Yeah, and that's one thing too. It takes a long time to heal from things sometimes. If you've had it for a long time, it's going to take a while to heal, but just keep going with it, and your body can heal itself as long as it's. C60 doesn't heal anything; it just lifts the oxidative burden. And once the oxidative burden your cells and your body are under is gone, then your body and cells can heal itself.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what your exercise regimen is like now, since you used to be a super long distance athlete. What do you find works for you that's like a moderate level of exercise? Like, how have you changed that up, Molly? Just curious to know.
Yeah, because as we get older, sometimes we can't do the stress response as much. And of course, hard exercise or super hard exercise like that is a real stress maker and cortisol producer.
Yeah, and so there's several factors that can, what's called bonking, when you don't have enough glucose because you weren't able to replenish it, or you didn't have. Can you imagine trying to run on a keto diet or a low carb diet? I tried to do that, and I finally gave up because I couldn't do it. So think about your carb level intake as well with exercise. Shaggy Roger says, how well does C60 work with kratom? What is
kratom?
kratom?
Probably wouldn't work. It's a totally different. C60 is an antioxidant. Kratom does other things, so it probably wouldn't have much effect on either. It's one does one thing, one does the other. There wouldn't be much synthropy between the two.
Here's a question I can't answer. How does chaga mushroom tea compared to green tea in lowering cortisol? That's a good question. I mean, I think that there's a lot of really great adaptogens out there, including ginseng and maca, that can help kind of let some of the stress out a little bit, lower the cortisol levels so that your body, and if you think about it, these plants, they, like maca, for instance, is grown way high up in, I forget what mountains. Is it the Andes
Yeah,
Mountains?
I think it's the Andes. Yeah, it's like South American plant.
And so they're like the only thing that grow there, and it's super they're stressed out plants, right? But they adapt to that climate and are able to survive. So the theory is that by eating that plant, you're also going to be able to adapt to stress as well. So there's many different adaptogens. I don't know what chaga. I don't know a whole lot about chaga mushrooms.
Yeah,
but
maca grows pretty good in my garden too.
Oh, really?
So,
You're growing
I got
it?
a bunch of plants there.
Wow.
Yeah. So so that's chaga is, we know it's what that's being used for, which we can't talk about, but yeah, it has well, mushrooms have incredible healing power, especially different types have different things. So, but C60 is an antioxidant. It just lifts the oxidative burden cells are under. But other things like mushrooms and all of these other foods that eat, they have the building blocks, and you need those building blocks to make things work. So C60 isn't a building block, it's just an antioxidant. So a good diet, a healthy diet, and all the things is really important, because it's not a magic pill. It won't replace good nutrition.
Absolutely. And I think any way you can get more variety in your diet, even if you are supplementing with a food like mushrooms, is great. And unfortunately, like, there's so many vegetables in the supermarket. They're all kind of relatives of the same family, like cabbage, kale, cauliflower, like they're all the same thing. Broccoli, they're all the same thing pretty much. So to get a variety, we got to get creative, and definitely mushrooms are something that are really good to.
Yes, they have. They have a lot of mushrooms, have a lot of copper and other special nutrients in them. So yeah, a wide variety diet, and also eating organic too.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems with a lot of modern cultivars and in using pesticides is it depletes the soil. And so you don't get all the vitamins and nutrients and minerals you possibly could. But when you use organic food, those things aren't present. And so your level of minerals and other nutrients in the food is way enhanced. So it's really, if you can eat organic, do so. Or if you can even grow your own vegetables organically, that's pretty huge too.
And eat the weeds in your garden.
Yes.
if you know which ones are edible, like lamb's quarters and purslane, and they're really good levels of nutrients that we don't get from a lot of other vegetables. So another great way to get variety there. Let's see. Crypto Nana says, okay, I just read that one. Can C60 help with neurological diseases?
Well, neurological diseases, there's a lot of them. and more than we can talk about. But a lot of it's neurologic diseases often happen as people get older, and it's just because there's sometimes a genetic weakness, sometimes there's this, but it's basically the mitochondria make the energy organelles for the cell. They even have more mitochondria in your nerves than in your muscles. And so if you have mitochondria dysfunction, then your nerves can't work. And usually it has to do with the inability or excess amounts of oxidative radicals. So if you can get C60 in there, it'll reduce those oxidative radicals. Once the oxidative radicals are gone, then your mitochondria and protein synthesis, neurotransmitter synthesis can happen. Because if your mitochondria aren't functioning, you don't have enough ATP. That ATP is the energy molecule of the cell. And so let's say you're going to need ATP to build a neurotransmitter. You're going to need a bunch of ATP to transport the neurotransmitter. You got to and put it in the vesicle and transport it. Then you got to take it, and then it's released. You got to have ATP to release the neurotransmitter, ATP to pull the uptake the neurotransmitter, because they reuse those neurotransmitters at the synapses. So you just need a whole bunch of ATP to make your nerves function correctly. And if your mitochondria aren't functioning correctly because they're overloaded with oxidative radicals, then that's where C60 can help.
Mm-hmm. And that would also be the same, could be said about hormones, not just neurotransmitters.
Oh, the same with
right?
hormones, because they're kind of in the same category there.
Yeah, they are.
Both of them. And it's just that you got to have healthy cells, healthy mitochondria. And also C60 likes to hang out in the endoplasmic reticulum, where the proteins and neurotransmitters and a lot of other things are being produced. That's the endoplasmic reticulum's right around the DNA, the nuclear membrane in the DNA, because that's where the RNA comes out. It goes to the protein synthesis centers, where then all the things are built for your cells. So C60 helps along all that way, so things aren't damaged by oxidative radicals before they can be built and then transported and used.
All right, so this next question, apparently we've been contradicting ourselves a little bit about the answer, and that is, should you take C60 on an empty stomach or after food? Now, we say after food on our website. Now, I think it's because some people have digestion problems with oils, and if you have oil on an empty stomach, then there's that. But if you don't have that problem, then if you take it on an empty stomach, it can be more easily absorbed.
And oil
right?
is a food.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have healthy oils like coconut oil. We talked about MCT coconut oil. That's refined. It's short chain triglycerides, and the liver can take those and turn them into ketones, which is an immediate energy source. So it's like flex fuel for your body if you've got glucose processing issues, or if you're an athlete. A lot of people use MCT coconut oil or just straight coconut oil for that. And then we have avocado oil, which is really easily digested by the body. And then it takes a little bit longer, but it's also an energy source. And then, of course, the olive oil, which is extra virgin olive, which is well characterized. People know about that, the Mediterranean diet. But yeah, C60 is in oil as a food. But yeah, and if you're not used to digesting straight oils, it's best to eat first and then take your C60 in oil, because then your body can process it, the oil mixed with the food, and it's much easier to do.
Is there some benefit to having it without the food? If you
it's faster. It's faster absorbed.
Oh, okay.
When you do that. But if your body can't process those oils, or if, let's say, you don't have your gallbladder, you probably want to take it with food. But you also should probably be taking some supplements. There's supplements you can do if you don't have a gallbladder that are basically, bile enzymes that your bile would have normally produced, so you can take that with food and everything processes it. Yeah, because if you had your gallbladder removed, you should be taking supplemental enzymes. That's just standard.
When in doubt, take it with food, but try it out for yourself. See what works better for you, because we all are different,
Yeah, and your body will adapt over time to recognize that oil, because your pancreas has there's little sensors in there, and it'll send information to your liver, your gallbladder, and then your body will kind of get used to digesting it. So over a while, then it won't be a problem for you. So when you first take it, it's a problem. Then after a couple months, then it's not a problem, because your body has adapted and learned how to digest it.
Personally, I don't like to take any supplements, vitamins, or anything before I eat, because I remember one time I think I threw up or something happened, horrible nausea. I was like, never again. Eating food first just really helps get the digestion going. I think for me, that's why I always take C60 after I eat.
Yeah, because and it's good to take that with it, because for instance, if you're going to take like vitamin D's or vitamin E's, having it with like fats, lipids, increases your ability to absorb vitamin D and vitamin E hugely. So So that's just that's kind of a, so sometimes, yeah,
Maybe-
taking your vitamins
yeah.
after food is usually a good idea because it allows the increased ability for your body to absorb those vitamins.
So can we agree that we'll say that from now on?
Okay,
Like if we
yes.
have to choose one or the other, we'll say take it after food.
Yeah, take it
We're
after
going to be
food.
consistent, guys.
Okay, yeah.
But do what works for you.
But it's,
okay?
yeah, it's different
It's
people
not hard and fast rule.
because C60 in oil is a food. It's just
Okay.
a very specific type.
Here we go. Laura says, could the remaining bit of C60 that isn't the teaspoon or tablespoon after one has drunk, what? Okay.
Oh yeah, that's, yeah, you can use it. C60 is great topically.
So she's saying if there's any leftover C60, you know, sometimes it'll dribble down the side
Yeah, you can just
in the spoon after you take it, there might be a little left. Yes, put it on your face.
It's great topically, and it's even great for just so people are going out in the summertime for mosquito bites. If you take C60 and then you rub it on the mosquito bite in about 20 minutes, the itching goes away. And then it's the inflammation goes down and the itching goes away. So yeah, C60 is great with mosquito bites.
Put it on a skin tag, put it on a funky looking mole, put it wherever you think there's something not quite right. Also, I have been doing C60 on my right hand, but not my left hand, and the age spots have gotten smaller. Yes, age spots, people. Yes, I am almost 45. So yeah. Anyway, I don't think you can see it, especially because now I've got a summer tan going, but it does really work well. And so give us your before and after pictures, by the way. If you haven't started it yet, take a picture and then start it. And then a few weeks later, take another picture.
Yeah, they did some
Send it to
Japanese
us.
research, and they used C60 topically, and it significantly reduced wrinkles in the Japanese women that used it.
All right, let's see. Okay, will C60 help toenail fungus?
Probably T60 won't help toenail fungus. However,
It is antifungal though.
Yeah, MCT oil
right.
is antifungal. So
Or it's
actually
antimicrobial.
Antimicrobial, but it's fungus has cell walls, and MCT coconut oil goes after anything that has cell walls. So that's like bacteria and fungi. So actually, it's probably not the C60, but if you get some MCT coconut oil from your store, because it'd be a little expensive using the C60 and MCT oil, but if you can like soak your fungal toes in MCT coconut oil, and then the MCT coconut oil will permeate into your toenails, and then it becomes an environment where the fungi can't survive and goes away. But your toenail has to actually grow out first. So yeah, and people use MCT coconut oil for toenail fungus all the time. So
I hope you're not eating lunch right now.
no, okay. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay.
That's just but that's just the thing of MCT coconut oil. C60 wouldn't help either way in that case, but that's just a little thing that people could know.
But on our research page, which you can go to c60purplepower.com/research, there is a research study that does say C60 is antimicrobial.
Yes, it has. Yeah, it has that.
And antibacterial. So there's that. Okay. What else? Can C60 help with type 2 diabetes?
C60 isn't meant to treat, cure, or prevent any disease. I mean, we have anecdotal reports, like my friend Gary Rodriguez, he had the macular degeneration that went away and his type 2 diabetes went away. But, a lot of this stuff is caused by inflammation. And if you lift the oxidative burden, the cells are under, because you didn't have type 2 diabetes when you were a kid, right? And then it comes. Now, what's causing it? There's a variety of things. And so if you're going to lift the oxidative burden the cells are under, then the cells can work more efficiently and problems go away. But of course, a whole bunch of that is nutrition too. You've got to, the amount of food you're eating and the type of food you're eating. I mean, it's like vets say, what's the number one thing for animal health? Diet, diet, diet. So all of those things. But yeah, C60 can help, but it's up to your cells to heal themselves.
Thomas says C60 can help with memory. My wife had a stroke in 2015 and was taking C60. She's been taking C60. Her memory has improved way better than she thought it could, or I thought.
Oh yeah, that's memory improvement in memory, and mental ability to think is a side effect of C60. And I think probably it's because the C60 gets in there, powers up the mitochondria can do their jobs, and bam, mental health improves.
Are there any risks with taking C60? Can you talk about nanoparticles and how it can be used against us with G5? I mean,
yes.
G5G.
Yeah,
right?
C60 is not a nanoparticle. It's too small to be a nanoparticle. It's just a molecule of, and it's round, so it doesn't really work. It can't really be affected by, its Q zone is so small. It's in the X-ray zone, so it can't be manipulated really from outside that way. It's pretty much immune to that. And it's just not in that category.
I think there's some confusion around this because there's some research studies that involve particles of C60 instead of singly dissolved molecules of C60. And some of these studies involve nanoparticles, nanotubes, and they are not the same thing as the C60 we use in our product. So if you want to learn more about that, check out our recent show, Does C60 Cause DNA Damage?, where we go dive deep into that. And of course it does not.
Yeah, because the only form of effective C60 is that's been dissolved in oil or polyhydroxynated, and then it can be dissolved in water. And the polyhydroxynated ones, by the way, is super, super expensive. It's a long process. It's used for injections, and that's really not available in the commercial market at all.
And what we know from research studies is that particles of pretty much anything, particles of clay can be damaging.
Exactly. Because basically a particle is just a crystal shard, and it has surface. It has it's like it has a catalytic surface, and it's also sharp, so it can tear into cell membranes, and it can do various chemical reactions as a catalytic surface. And so it's totally different than, let's say, an individually dissolved molecule.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
We'll do the silica thing, right?
That's what I was going to say.
Dissolved silica is really key for your health. You need silica for a whole bunch of processes. But if you ground it up, basically glass is made of silica. So if you ground up a bunch of tiny nano shards of silica glass and took them, that would be negative because it would tear up cell membranes and stuff, and it wouldn't be available for any biologically useful thing. So you have to make sure, the difference between a particle of something and a dissolved molecule, that thing, are just completely different behaviors.
All right. Does C60 help with thyroid functioning? Well, yes, it does. I'm actually a testament to that because I have been able to decrease my thyroid hormones by 3/4. So that's interesting. And of course, this whole show is about adrenal function, which is directly related to thyroid function. It's usually the thing that causes problems with the thyroid. What else do we have here? Oh, and you can watch our show all about the thyroid.
Oh, yes, we have.
Definitely check that out.
How many shows do we have now?
66.
66 shows. Whoa.
And some change, because some of them are our show, some of them are other videos.
Oh, okay.
And then we've got our new show now. So we've got a new show coming out every week, guys. So subscribe, click the bell icon so you can get a notification every time we release something new, which we do weekly now.
Yep.
Another question, and then we probably should wrap this up, guys. I know we've got more questions,
well,
but
let's do a little more because we took so much.
Put them in the comments.
Yeah, we took so much time on the show. We can do a little bit longer this today.
We did a 45-minute presentation. So
let's answer some questions. I'll speed up the question answer.
Okay. The next one is, what's the difference between people or pets purple power?
They're actually the same product. It's just the pets are usually smaller and they'll come with a dropper.
So they have different labeling.
Yeah, different labeling. That's it. And
you can give your pet your own C60.
Yeah,
right?
And things like, you don't want to give avocado oil to birds. And that's basically, but different pets like different oils too.
Okay, rapid fire. Here we go. Last couple questions here. In the C60 coconut oil, I'm taking the same as the pet version. Can I give my dog the same liquid as I take? Yes.
Yes.
We just sort of answered that. What specific ingredients are in each of these products? There's 2 ingredients. There's healthy organic oil and there's C60 fullerenes.
Yep. So that's it. So it's avocado oil and C60. It's coconut oil, MCT coconut oil and C60. It's olive oil and C60 plus.
And on our flavored C60s, it's basically organic cinnamon isolate plus those other 2 ingredients.
Yes.
So
there's 3 ingredients.
Or peppermint.
Those are in coconut oil, so it's just the isolate and coconut oil and
but
the
C60.
C60.
Key is how much C60, guys, because the concentration matters. Some products, they may be cheaper, they may not have as much C60. So look at how much C60 per serving. We put the maximum possible amount that can be dissolved in the carrier oil. So the amount of C60 per serving is 4.5 milligrams
Yeah,
per serving.
Yeah, which you take a teaspoon. So
Which is
yeah, so we just
it's pure C60.
yeah, we just
It's
take
99% pure. That's also matters, right?
Yeah, we stir it for days to get the maximum amount that we can dissolve into the product.
Okay, we kind of already discussed that, so I'm gonna skip that. Already discussed that. Cool. I think we got through it all here. Oh wait, there's a few, one email came in with like 4 questions. Should we answer them?
Sure. What do we got?
Will it help with fibromyalgia pain?
Yes, people have come in and said yes, it's helped there, and I think it does that just by getting rid of the inflammation. C60 gets into inflammation. A lot of pain is caused by inflammation.
Yeah, if it's an inflammatory condition, C60 will probably help.
Yes.
Now, I want to say something about anecdotal evidence really quick.
Okay.
I heard a really funny analogy, but they have not done double-blind studies on whether jumping out of an airplane with a parachute will prevent death. However, anecdotal evidence says that it will.
Yes.
So anecdotal evidence does have some validity. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Dosage help, I think we covered that today. If we didn't cover your question, please let us know in the comments, because we always hang out there after the show and answer whatever questions we couldn't answer on the show after the show. So let us know. But thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. And
if you'd like to try C60 for yourself, visit the C60purplepower.com. Remember to use the coupon code THE-C60 Show for 15% off.
And if you're watching us on YouTube today, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notified every time we upload something new, which we do every week.
Well, thank you everyone for your questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again on our next show.
See you next time.